Mark, can you tell us about some of the impacts that Dr. Bill Stapleton had on the Ingrams School of Engineering?
The impacts that Bill Stapleton had on the Ingrams School of Engineering, that is a good question. And that's a hard question to ask and answer in a small period of time. Because Dr. Stapleton was one of the initial faculty here when they started engineering, when they started the electrical engineering. So he had a lot of influence. One of the main things he did was helped us get ABET. Without Dr. Stapleton, we would not have been ABET accredited that early. He helped establish the early first-on curriculums. He worked with trying to get IEEE in. So he was very, very pivotal with making everything happen. He always had a voice in actually all the labs. Every time we created a labs up in RF MIDI upstairs, or when we moved here to Ingram, this is what we're going to do with the labs, this is a suggestion on what we're going to buy. So he was very pivotal in setting everything up. Without him, we wouldn't have the program that we do now.
How about computer engineering?
In computer engineering, that's an interesting thing you brought up. How about computer engineering? Well, specifically in computer engineering, Bill was rock solid. I found out later on by talking to other professors that Dr. Stapleton helped them all create every class that was for computer engineering. He had a voice in everyone. Well, we should do digital logic this way. We should do microprocessors this way. So he was always helpful, always trying to do the best for the students.
Speaking of, can you give several examples of how Dr. Stapleton prioritized the education of our students?
How did Dr. Stapleton prioritize the education of students? He lived and breathed it. He really did. It was what made him tick. He would go in and I would talk to him late nights and weekends, and we were trying to figure out how we were going to evolve microprocessors, or what can we do to work between all the different classes. But first and foremost, Bill was always available for the students. Didn't matter if it was a microprocessors class that he taught, or a power class that he didn't, or RF, or any class at all. If a student would come in and wanted help, he would find a way to help them. He would find a way to educate them. If they didn't know and he wasn't sure, he would figure it out for him and get back to him on it. But my experience with Bill was there wasn't much the man didn't know. Honestly, he was the single smartest person I've known in a very long time. And he was such a wonderful person about it. He always wanted to share. And that's how he helped for me with the education of the students. He always wanted to share his love of learning. He wanted to get other students to love to learn the way he did.
Do you think that he sacrificed his career as a professor in research specifically in order to focus on the students?
That is absolutely a great question. Did he sacrifice his research type career to focus on students? He absolutely did. Students were first for him. He did not want to do the research. He wanted to evolve the classes. He wanted to stay involved with the students themselves. He wanted to stay involved with how the classes evolved themselves. He was always looking for a way to make it easier for the students to learn and a way for the students to learn better. That was always on his mind.
He was a great man. Did Dr. Stapleton have an influence on your career path?
Dr. Stapleton had an influence on my career path, absolutely, for my career path here. Because through him, I found that he had a contagious love for what he did, a contagious love for the education, for helping students along. And I had that love when I worked in the industry. I mean, I was in the industry for more than 30 years, and I was because I loved it dearly. And I came here and I went, I found somebody who loves teaching as much as I loved doing engineering. And he helped me learn the love of teaching more than I did before. I knew I wanted to teach. That's why I retired to come teach before I got too old. And he helped me figure out how to love teaching. Because I always loved learning. But he says, nah, we can make this better. We were always trying to evolve everything.
And how are you pursuing that in terms of your PhD?
Well, that's actually Dr. Stapleton did help with that one too. When we were talking, I am actually pursuing a PhD in education. as opposed to computer science or engineering or whatever, because I teach. I want to teach. I had the engineering background, but I want to be a better teacher. And Bill always wanted to learn to be a better teacher. He always strived to try to get his message across better. And I knew I could find a better way of doing it, and I thought the education PhD would help me get there. So Bill was an influence in me getting there, and I wish I could have had him on my committee. He was my first person for being on my committee from outside.
Tell us several characteristics of Dr. Stapleton that you admired the most.
Characteristics of, I'm sorry, I'm going to start. Characteristics of Dr. Stapleton that I admired the most. He always wanted help. He never met a problem he didn't want to try to solve. And no matter what you came to, if it was an intellectual puzzle, Bill would latch on to it like a bulldog. He would always go through and figure it out. You better take over.
I met Dr. Stapleton the first time at a senior design day in 2019. And I had been walking all over the school, looking at the projects and everything. It was 4 o'clock and everybody was gathering in the lobby of Ingram for the awards ceremony. And I remember watching all of the faculty get ready to give out the awards, and they were checking in with their teams. And there was this one man in the middle that students were not just gravitating towards, they were moving towards him in groups, and they were checking in to make sure that they had done him proud that day. And every group that won an award were congratulating themselves and then going to Dr. Stapleton to share their joy. And that really struck me, and I thought, I've got to meet this man. So I was introduced to him later in the day, and that's my fondest memory of Dr. Stapleton, I think. And one of the things that I admired the most was that he had that sort of impact on the students, that they looked to him as somebody whose admiration and pride they had earned, and he reflected it back to them. He was genuinely joyful for all of them that day, and he took a moment to make sure to spend time with each person and each team to let them know how proud he was.
He was a natural born leader.
He was.
He was, and he's greatly missed.
What are the impacts of endowments for our students and our faculty? And thinking about this run to R1 that we're in right now, I think it's a very important topic.
It is. The impacts of the endowment are just starting. It's going to be an endowment, so it's going to be an impact forever. But we have at Texas State, and we're proud of it, we have first students out of their first in their families to come to college. We've had students that are challenged to come up with all the money, like we both were when they did, and every bit counts. And I think Dr. Stapleton would be proud that he's giving money to help them get the scholarships to get them through.
I agree. I completely agree. I think seeing a lot of the students here being the first of their family, very first generation to go to college, the benefit and just the perpetual nature of an endowed scholarship gives them the opportunity to get their first degree, and they can pursue that anywhere. They can take it into industry for a fulfilling career. They can go onwards to a higher level degree as the university pivots and offers more master's and PhD programs. It really opens the world for them, and I've had the pleasure of working with a number of students here through sponsoring senior design teams and keeping in touch with them after they graduate or after they go on to graduate level degrees. And they are just so grateful for that start that they got at Texas State. And I think that the scholarship will make that possible for generations more.